At 32, Harry Kane did something that shocked English football. Not a screaming interview, not a public war, something colder, more unsettling. He finally allowed the world to hear what he had buried for years, the quiet truth behind the perfect captain mask. Because when a man like Kane, disciplined, loyal, almost painfully controlled, starts hinting that he was pushed, cornered, and used, it stops being just a transfer story. It becomes a scandal in slow motion. What really happened in the rooms the cameras never entered? Who benefited from his silence, and who feared the day he would speak? And why now, after years of smiling through disappointment, does the tone feel different? Almost confessional? Because Kane's story isn't just about goals, it's about 5 names, 5 faces tied to moments that scarred him. And with that, we come to his list. 5 names, 5 stories that go deeper than anyone suspects. Number 5, Mauricio Pochettino. When people speak about Harry Kane's rise, one name always comes up first, Mauricio Pochettino. To the public, their relationship looked almost perfect. The mentor who believed, the striker who delivered. Together at Tottenham Hotspur, they created the image of harmony, trust, and shared ambition. But insiders say that behind this clean narrative, tension was already growing. Pochettino built his Tottenham around Kane, tactically, symbolically, emotionally. Kane was not just the number 9, he was the standard everyone else was measured against. According to former staff members, this created a silent burden. Every failure became personal. Every defeat felt like a verdict on Kane's leadership. Witnesses from the training ground recall moments where Kane was pushed beyond his limits, not through insults, but through expectation, extra sessions, constant responsibility, subtle reminders that the team's fate rested on his shoulders. Pochettino rarely raised his voice, but his disappointment carried weight, and Kane felt it. The real fracture came during Tottenham's final seasons under Pochettino. Promises of evolution were made, squad depth, experience, a final step toward trophies, but season after season, Kane watched the same gaps remain. According to insiders, Kane privately questioned whether loyalty was being mistaken for obedience. The most unsettling moment, sources say, happened after a crushing defeat late in Pochettino's tenure. In a closed-door meeting, Kane reportedly asked a simple question. Are we actually moving forward? The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. No clear answer. No reassurance. That was the moment Kane realized something uncomfortable. Pochettino believed in the project. Kane had begun to doubt it. When Pochettino was eventually dismissed, the public saw heartbreak. Kane praised him. He spoke of gratitude. But those close to him describe a different feeling beneath the words, relief mixed with guilt. Relief that the cycle had ended. Guilt that it ended without the success he was promised. This wasn't a feud. It was something colder. A quiet understanding that belief alone doesn't win trophies, and that staying silent too long can cost years of a career. And for Kane, this was only the beginning. Number 4, Daniel Levy. If Mauricio Pochettino represented belief, then Daniel Levy represented power. For years, Levy was the man behind every major decision at Tottenham Hotspur. To the outside world, he was praised as a tough negotiator, a chairman who protected the club. But inside Harry Kane's story, his name carries a far heavier weight. According to insiders, Kane's relationship with Levy was never emotional. It was transactional. Respectful on the surface, tense underneath. Kane delivered goals, records, global attention. Levy delivered contracts, statements, and carefully worded promises, but when it came to ambition, their visions quietly drifted apart. Witnesses from within the club recall multiple moments where Kane's camp raised concerns about the future. Not ultimatums, not threats, just questions. Would the squad truly be reinforced? Would Tottenham match Kane's prime years with real investment? Each time, sources say, the answers were vague, encouraging, but non-committal. The breaking point came when Kane realized his loyalty had become leverage. According to people close to the negotiations, Levy repeatedly used Kane's image as proof that Tottenham was still competitive, still stable. Kane wasn't just a player anymore, he was reassurance. The most explosive moment happened during a private conversation in which Kane's future was discussed directly. Insiders claim Kane made it clear he wanted clarity, not necessarily an exit, but honesty. The response he received was calm, controlled, and devastating. The club would decide the timing, not the player. From that moment on, something shifted. Kane stopped expecting understanding. He stopped believing silence would be rewarded. Publicly, he remained professional. Privately, trust eroded. What once felt like mutual respect now felt like containment. Those close to Kane say this period was emotionally exhausting. Not because of open conflict, but because of restraint. Being England captain, club icon, and contract asset at the same time left him trapped between responsibility and ambition. When Kane eventually pushed for change, the narrative painted him as impatient. But insiders insist the truth was darker. He had waited, he had endured, and by the time he finally acted, the damage was already done. For Kane, Daniel Levy wasn't an enemy. He was a reminder that in modern football, loyalty often benefits everyone, except the loyal one. Number 3. Gareth Southgate. On paper, Gareth Southgate was supposed to be Harry Kane's safe place. England captain, national hero, the leader trusted to carry a nation's hope. But insiders say that behind the armbands and press conferences, this relationship was far more complicated than it ever appeared. Southgate placed immense trust in Kane. He built England's attack around him, defended him publicly, and handed him symbolic authority. But with that trust came something heavier: expectation without alternatives. According to people close to the national setup, Kane felt irreplaceable, and therefore exposed. Every missed chance became a national verdict. Every defeat circled back to him. Witnesses recall moments during major tournaments where Kane was visibly struggling physically. Quiet conversations with medical staff. Hesitation before matches. Yet the structure never changed. Southgate believed in stability. Kane carried the cost of that belief. The tension reached its peak after a devastating tournament exit. Insiders claim Kane privately questioned tactical rigidity, not in anger, but in frustration. He asked whether adaptation was possible. The response he received was calm, almost dismissive. Trust the process. For Kane, it felt like being heard without being listened to. The most painful moment came not from words, but from silence. After a high-profile miss that defined headlines for weeks, Kane waited for protection. Not excuses, understanding. According to those inside the camp, it never came the way he expected. Responsibility was shared publicly, but the burden stayed with him. From that point, Kane's leadership changed. He spoke less. He carried more internally. The captain became isolated, not by conflict, but by expectation. Southgate still trusted him. The fans still backed him. Yet Kane began to feel alone inside a role that once empowered him. This wasn't betrayal. It was something subtler, more damaging. A system that needed Kane too much to ever truly protect him. And as pressure from club and country collided, the cracks in Kane's silence grew deeper. Number 2. Jose Mourinho. When Jose Mourinho arrived at Tottenham Hotspur, the message was clear. This time, it was about winning. No more projects, no more patience. For Harry Kane, this sounded like salvation, a serial winner, a man who promised trophies, not excuses. But insiders say the reality was far darker. Mourinho's methods were immediate and unforgiving. Training intensity changed. The tone shifted. Kane was no longer just the leader. He was the extension of Mourinho's authority on the pitch. According to witnesses, Kane was repeatedly instructed to drop deeper, defend more, sacrifice himself for the system. Publicly, Mourinho praised his team-first mentality. Privately, the demands kept growing. Those close to Kane described this period as mentally draining. He was scoring, assisting, covering ground, carrying responsibility at both ends of the pitch. Yet, when results turned sour, the atmosphere hardened. Mourinho's press conferences became sharper, subtle comments, loaded phrases, never naming Kane, but never shielding him either. The real rupture came during a crucial run of matches where Tottenham's form collapsed. Insiders claim Kane privately raised concerns about the balance of the team. Not rebellion, concern. The response was cold. This is how winners suffer. One moment stands out. After a damaging defeat, Mourinho reportedly addressed the squad with brutal clarity, questioning mentality and courage. Witnesses recall Kane sitting in silence, absorbing words clearly aimed at him as much as anyone else. No argument followed, no confrontation, just distance. From that point on, something broke. Kane continued to perform, but insiders say his belief in the project evaporated. Mourinho spoke of mentality. Kane felt trapped in survival mode. Winning felt theoretical. The pressure was real. When Mourinho was eventually dismissed, Kane again stayed professional. He thanked him. He avoided controversy, but those close to the striker describe a deep sense of disillusionment. Another promise of trophies had collapsed. Another authority figure had demanded sacrifice, without protection. This wasn't a clash of egos, it was a collision of philosophies. Mourinho wanted control. Kane needed trust. And somewhere in between, the silence grew heavier. By now, Kane wasn't just questioning Tottenham, he was questioning how many more years he could afford to lose. And that leads us to the final name, the one that changed everything. Number 1, Tottenham Hotspur. In the end, the most painful name on Harry Kane's list was not a coach, not a chairman, not a teammate. It was Tottenham Hotspur itself. For Kane, Tottenham was never just a club. It was identity, childhood, belonging. He grew up inside its walls, rose through its academy, and carried its crest through every high and low. That emotional bond, insiders say, is exactly what made everything hurt more. According to people close to Kane, the deepest wound wasn't losing finals, it wasn't missing trophies, it was the realization that the club he gave everything to could never fully give back what his prime demanded. Seasons passed with familiar patterns, hope in August, belief in spring, emptiness in May. Each time, Kane stood in front of the cameras and took responsibility. Behind closed doors, witnesses recall moments where Kane questioned the direction of the club itself, not angrily, quietly. He asked whether winning was truly the priority, or whether stability and financial control had quietly replaced ambition. The answers, insiders say, were never clear. The most devastating moment came when Kane finally accepted a truth he had resisted for years. Tottenham needed him more than he needed Tottenham. His goals masked structural flaws. His loyalty softened criticism. His silence protected reputations. That understanding changed everything. From then on, staying no longer felt noble. It felt like self-sabotage. Kane wasn't betraying the club by leaving. He was betraying himself by staying. Those close to him say the emotional toll was immense. Guilt toward fans, fear of being judged, anger he never allowed himself to express. When the move finally happened, the reaction was explosive. Accusations of abandonment, questions about legacy, but insiders insist Kane felt something unexpected in those first weeks away. Relief. Not joy. Relief. The weight was gone. Tottenham had given him a platform. Kane had given them his prime. But the silence between them had grown too loud to ignore. And yet, the story doesn't end there. Because what Kane realized after leaving was even more unsettling than everything before. What finally unsettled those around Harry Kane was a private admission he never made in public. According to insiders, Kane confessed that for years he had spoken carefully, not honestly. Every calm interview, every line about patience, was a shield. Not to protect the club, but to protect himself, his captaincy, his image, his place in English football. One former staff member recalls a moment Kane quietly said, "If I say what I really feel, everything collapses." That was the twist. Kane didn't stay silent because he believed. He stayed silent because speaking felt more dangerous than losing. And when he finally left, it wasn't ambition that pushed him out. It was exhaustion. Today, Harry Kane carries fewer illusions and fewer chains. The goals remain. The legacy is debated. But the silence that defined his prime is gone. What fans once called loyalty now looks different. It was restraint, fear of breaking a role he never chose, but was forced to live. Kane didn't abandon his past. He escaped it. And his story leaves a quiet warning behind. In modern football, silence can be more damaging than failure, because glory is loud. But the shadows are where the real cost is buried.